Hi, I'm Ann Sparacco, host of SHRM's podcast, All Things Work. If work feels overly complicated, here's something that might help. Paylocity's one platform for HR, finance, and IT delivers AI-powered automation, centralized workforce data, and flexible time tracking to support teams during busy seasons. With mobile clock-ins and intelligent insights all in one place, confident decisions come easier. Learn more about how Paylocity helps streamline work and bring teams together at paylocity.com/one. Hey everyone, it's your favorite coworker Ann, and this is the All Things Work podcast. Today we're recording our episode at SHRM 26 in Orlando with a special live audience today. Can we get a round of applause for our early live audience? They came out early today. All right, so let's jump right in. Here's the thing about the proverbial career ladder. We've been climbing the same one for decades. You develop skills, you get hired, learn more skills, you find your special mentor, you get promoted maybe, you repeat, and you go up and up you go. Then AI showed up, we all know that, and started changing the shape of the ladder itself. The path all the way up isn't as clear as it used to be. But the thing that still is helping people climb that ladder is the skills they build along the way. So today we're digging into, how artificial intelligence is reshaping that conversation. We're talking about promotional pathways that are compressing, mentorship cultures that are quietly eroding, and how psychological safety can help people keep learning, keep adapting, and keep growing when the path forward or up isn't always clear. So joining me today are three incredible experts. I've had the pleasure of meeting them before this recording. They've been living inside these questions and each bring a distinct lens to the conversation. We'll start with Prudence Pitter, is the founder and CEO of PEARRM Services, an HR consulting and leadership advisory firm. And John Arms is the founder and educator of Voyageur University, where he helps people find clarity in career transitions. And finally, Yogi Mueller is the owner and chief craftsman at Craft Leadership LLC, a company specializing in transforming individuals and teams into leaders. Prudence, John, Yogi, welcome to All Things Work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to start with a reality check here. This is a big conversation. When we say the career ladder is changing, what does that actually mean on the ground in the employees that you work with every day in your organization? What does that change look and feel like? Yogi, let's start with you.
When you talk about career ladder, I think we've been, at least in my world, have been pushing away from that terminology for quite some time and talking career lattice. So it's not necessarily a direct ascension up or down, it's sideways. But, I tell you, we had the general session yesterday and Betsy mentioned this elimination of a lot of frontline early entry roles and how that impacts. And I think that is the way she framed that yesterday really just exemplified the red flags and the warning signs that are going out in terms of career ladders. Because without those entry-level positions, there is a massive gap to jump. I mean, even in traditional ladders, if you were a frontliner to get that supervisor role or that manager role, it seemed like an insurmountable chasm that you had to jump. Now those roles don't even exist, so that chasm, that perceived chasm, gets bigger. Mm-hmm. So I think what a tremendous call to action for us in this business that are passionate about people to ensure that we have bridges to meet all of those expanding gaps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And John, you discuss fractional leadership. How does that come into this conversation?
Well, the thing about the career ladder, like I look at the career ladder, I'm like, listen, all the rungs have changed and some of them are gone for everybody going up and down. And that's just where we are as a society. The thing I focus on is, what is our core value? What are we really, really good at? We call it the inner nerd in our class. And what are we exceptional at? What are we fascinated by? Forget the career ladder for a moment, because who knows how you're going to go take yourself to work over the next few years. Who knows? Fractional, independent, I've been laid off, loyalty's gone. All the ingredients of the career ladder have completely changed. So we have to take a moment and say, what are my skills without any ladder? How do I put myself in business for myself? That's kind of the ultimate safety. We're not used to that. The ladder has been institutional, and now it no longer is.
And Prudence, your perspective.
One of the things that Yogi said about that gap, if you don't have that frontline employee, what does that mean? I believe that highlights succession planning as such a core need within the organization. And you also talked about, both of you talked about not going up necessarily. It also takes into account cross-training and development in a horizontal way. And it also takes into account employee well-being and ensuring that leaders are tapping into what employees need to be whole. If there's someone who is coming out of college and they had their eye on a job that their parents had, and that is what they're looking to do, now in this era that no longer exists possibly, what does that mean for them? Mentorship, sponsorship, additional development, succession planning, cross-training. It gives us as HR leaders an opportunity to touch different parts of the organization that potentially we didn't necessarily touch in the past. And I believe that shows up in succession planning and employee well-being initiatives.
I think it's so important. So thank you all for that perspective. I'm going to turn it to our audience now. So raise your hand if at some point in the last year or two you've had an employee or been an employee who asked yourself something along the lines of, what does my growth path actually look like? And the answer was more complicated than you thought. All right, so majority of the room now, keep your hand up. Keep your hands up, the ones who, thank you. Keep your hands up if you felt like the systems your organization has in place, the promotion criteria, the development programs, mentorship cultures weren't quite built for the moment you're in right now. Some of the hands went down, a lot of them stayed up some, and so that's what we're talking about today. So let's dig into each of your areas, and I want to touch on all three because you guys have such distinct lenses to this conversation. So Prudence, we're going to start with you. You discuss in your work how organizations often unknowingly create environments where people are connected by technology, but psychologically everyone is disconnected and operating in that survival mode, especially as we see AI accelerate. So how does your well-being architect model close that gap and tie psychological safety into AI adoption?
The thing with AI is it is highlighting what already existed. So AI is bringing to the forefront issues within organization's culture. Was communication strong to begin with? AI is fast forwarding that. Was there an issue with overall leadership development? AI is fast forwarding that as well. And employees are starting to recognize that, if we have all these tools, we have all these resources, we have the ability to move faster and to do more, why is it that I am not getting to do what I should be doing and what I'm qualified to do? So AI is highlighting some of the gaps that were already present in organizations. The framework that I created focuses on psychological safety, trust, leadership development, and communication. And I want to pause on the communication part and say two-way communication. So listening as much as we speak, and it's so basic. We know these things, but we also move so fast. So the organizations that are building in listening sessions for employees, that are taking the information that they're receiving and using it to actually make changes in the organization, those are the organizations that can do more with artificial intelligence.
I love the two-way communication. That's a really, really good thing to highlight there.
Your organization has a window right now to lead I&D with confidence, not catch up later. PEARRM Blueprint for I&D, part of All Things Work 2026, gives HR leaders the legal clarity and performance-based strategies to do exactly that. Lock in early bird pricing before August 28th at sherm.org/blueprint26-earlybird. That's sherm.org/blueprint26-earlybird.
So John, I'm going to throw some SHRM research at you because this ties in with your work.
I love data.
So SHRM's most recent research on AI job displacement risk found that at least 50% of tasks are automated in more than 23 million US jobs, which also shows how this shift is painting a more complex picture than we realize. You know, you see those headlines, AI is replacing your job. That's not exactly the case. It's really changing how it's shaped. And you use the phrase job evaporation. And I think that's a really clarifying way to describe this shift that we're seeing in tandem with this research. So what are the early signs that career path evaporation is already happening inside an organization? How can we identify those signs?
Well, I think the data we've all seen in the last month, all these layoffs, the Oracle layoff and the Meta layoff, 1,000 here and 30,000 there, and they're saying, AI did it, AI did it, AI did it. And I always say this, like, well, if they laid off 30,000 people, those people didn't evaporate. They're still there. They're still people with skills and abilities and can contribute to the economy. So the idea of evaporation, I think, is very scary for both adults and grown-ups in the early stage. Now, we can't sit there and panic over that. We have to go back to self-agency as our primary driver for our career. I'm not bullish on AI doing anything less than it's already doing. I think it's going to continue to just evaporate jobs. I think there's some benefits to it. I think AI makes the individual practitioner very, very strong. I always call it, when you have AI, you've got 1,000 Einsteins at your elbow. So it's very, very useful. It's very, very helpful. I think it helps the individual, but from an organizational standpoint, it's devastating. It's like a hurricane coming through the job force right now. We just have to call it that.
Yeah, and we have to adapt very quickly. Because like you said, it's not going away.
Yes. There's $240 billion invested in AI right now. $240 billion. And its job is to take away jobs.
So this kind of leads into our next question.
That was a very dystopian. Hey,
listen,
wow.
I just report the weather. Right?
Yeah. She's about
He's
ready
just
to
the
ask me a
messenger,
question.
guys.
I'm like depressed now after that last comment.
We're gonna lighten it up though, because we want to. Though I don't know, your phrase about mentorship, it might seem a little dark too. You say mentorship is dying, but we want to turn it a little bit here on the lighter side. What forces are actually draining mentorship out of organizations right now? How much of it is driven by AI, and where can we, try to step in and improve in the world of AI?
So my theory behind mentorship is dying. It's not dead yet, but it's on life support, and it's a couple of things. One, I see you mentioned communication and two-way communication. I think the styles of how individuals and generations communicate has a lot to do with it. We have our experienced generation that has a particular love of or comfort with one level of communication, and we have the inexperienced generation that doesn't have that level. And I think there's a general lack of patience to understand how to communicate those gaps. So instead of taking the time to build those relationships, they would rather just not. So I think that's ripping at the fabric. I also feel that we have an opportunity. We bubble wrap a lot of things these days. I feel mentorship and true growth and succession planning, like you're talking about, where we're really working with individuals and smoothing out those rough edges, that takes some friction. And I'm a firm believer in, sea captains don't learn how to sail on smooth waters. They learn how to sail on rough waters. If you think back over your career and some of the most important feedback that you've gotten from a mentor or a coach is, you're an idiot, don't do that. And all of that sensitivity kind of went away because you knew that feedback was given to you by somebody that you trust and really wants to invest in you. So I think all the things that we talked about today absolutely emphasize the need to make sure that we're making those connections. Without those entry-level positions that we talked about, without those starting positions, even, how many of us got our first job at a fast food restaurant taking orders at a counter, right? Now that's done by a machine. And so that's not just education about the job and the profession, that's working for managers, that's getting a paycheck, that's paying taxes. Those things are being evaporated, John. That's a great term.
Don't get dystopian now. That's my job.
You got him.
What a
I'm supposed to
payback.
be the happy guy? Okay.
Anna said we're going to lighten it up on your side.
And I know it feels dystopian, but we're going to get into the steps on how to make it feel lighter at the end of this conversation. Don't worry, you had a thought.
I do want to double click on something that you said. Leaders who are creating spaces where people feel safe to speak up first need to be vulnerable. First need to start off with where they stubbed their toes along the way, the difficulties that they had, the leader who told them hopefully not in those words, you're an idiot, do it this way.
No, he told me I was an idiot.
And then when you tell that story, you use different words with your employees to meet them where they are. But the point is, to get employees to open up, you have to meet them where they are, and you have to appear more human. When you start to have conversations with employees and you share with them your journey, because they see you in these roles, you're head of HR, you're head of a department, you're the CEO, whatever your roles are, they aspire to be there at one point, and they many times don't know the path. So when they're getting feedback that's difficult, they're stating, I do want to do better, but if you're the one telling them how to do better because you were in their shoes one day, it changes their perspective. And that's when you're able to get them to open up, to share more, and to be more
modeling it, absolutely.
Role modeling.
Great point.
Yep.
That's a good point. I'd love to take it to our audience one more time, because based on the mentorship discussion here, how many of you have either a mentor or a formal mentor program at your company? If you can raise your hand and keep your hands up. So about half the audience, lower your hand if you think your program isn't really working effectively for you. Okay, half the hands went down. That's the gap we're talking about today.
The clock is ticking. Early bird pricing on the PEARRM Certified Professional and PEARRM Senior Certified Professional certification ends August 31st. Register now and use promo code SUMMER26 to save an additional 25%. This is your moment to stand out, prove your expertise, and take the next big step in HR. Don't wait until it's too late. Head to sherm.org/certification and lock in your savings today.
So I want to move on to a question that brings all three of you guys back in together, because I think skill building connects all of your work here, and this is the point of our conversation. It connects compression, well-being, and mentorship. So are organizations caught in a cycle where all three of these problems are feeding each other? And if so, where do you break the loop? Let's start with Prudence.
Where do you break the loop? They're definitely interconnected. AI is causing burnout. We have organizations that are doing layoffs, and they're blaming it on AI. I believe the data is not there yet to say that it truly is AI related. A lot of organizations are not yet reporting how AI is accelerating their business. So the fact that the layoff is tied to AI, in my opinion, is not so. A lot of organizations overhired during COVID, and they're adjusting for that. However, employees are keen to show how they can do more with the resources that the organization is investing in, and that is leading to burnout. A lot of organizations, even if they're calling employees back into the office, employees are working longer hours. There is this need to prove that I can use these resources that you are investing in, and I can do more for the organization. I can do my job better. And many organizations are not investing in the right training for the tools that they're adopting. So employees are learning and working. So it's almost as if they have two jobs at the same time. Skill building and having that pause to ensure that employees are truly learning the right things with the right tools is important. And organizations need to start to readjust that so that employees are not left on their own to do their regular job, learn this new tool, and try to do more with it so that they can stay employed. There is this fear that AI is going to take our jobs, and it's there are a lot of employees who are saying, I won't be that one. I am going to work so much harder, and that is resulting in burnout going out, unfortunately.
I mean, it is that you're trying to maintain that competitive advantage against not just other people in the industry, but the AI, the tools. Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up. So John, what's your perspective on this if they're interconnected?
Well, when we think about organizations delivering skills development, that's one thing, but think about yourself. I'm just going to take on self-development on my own and go as high as I can. I think we've sort of missed that a little bit. What is the organization going to do for me for my development? What are we going to do for myself? And I talk about this in my class. It's interesting. Can you imagine you're going to read a book at your desk for an hour and a half? What people would do is they walk around you. Gary's reading a book. How does he get away with that? But that is the best thing you can do is develop yourself. You bring so much value when you develop yourself. It's through the roof. And I think we sort of lost the script on that. I think we're almost afraid of that in a lot of ways. So I think we have to bring it back.
I was like, yeah, that's more like the self-motivation
100%,
side. Because
yeah.
you can't just depend on your organization or your peers to get you to learn.
You are
you
the
have to
bet.
be willing to do it yourself too.
Bet on yourself.
And
It
don't
is
burn yourself out.
Bet on yourself. It is the best bet you can ever make.
And Yogi.
So I'm going to wax philosophic here for a
I
second.
love it.
But it's along what John was talking about is I really think that AI is eroding Maslow's hierarchy of need, right? Because, you know, we had the top of the pyramid is that self-actualization. And a lot of times that's, you know, I'm going to be paint, I'm going to read, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, AI does all that now for you. Like it paints, it writes songs, it writes poetry. So where's the incentive to go up another rung? Right? You know, if you're a nerd and you watch Star Trek, you know, they had the replicators and they had the things that done all that for you in the computer, but they still pursued self-actualization.
Yeah.
I don't see, that's that gap that I see, that where is the goal? Where is the desire to be better, to better ourselves when we're given this tool that, you know, who knows what that might be doing for us in 5 years? We might, you know, be just sitting in a chair and our world is taken care of by pushing a button around us. Can't let that erode. We have to keep that fire burning inside.
And I'm biased on that because I love Star Trek. I think that that's super important. So we covered the what and the why. Now I would love to cover what do we do with this conversation when we all go back to work, you know, with our team and our self-motivation and trying to manage our burnout. So Yogi, back to you. Let's start with managers because they're often the first ones to feel the squeeze between organizational change and the employees they need to support. And so if a manager wants to start building a genuine mentorship culture within their team, not a formal program, where can they start this week?
Great question. And I do want to give credit to just an incredible person. Her name is Maria Scott, and she did a presentation recently on the employee value proposition, the EVP, is not between the employee and the organization anymore. It's between that employee and their direct manager. And that is becoming ever more so important. And I think what can a manager do, and I'm going to go, Prudence, back to what you said, model it. Embrace it, preach it, evangelize it, tell your stories about how you got to where you are today because of somebody's investment in you. Be proud of it. Be proud of your opportunities. Be vulnerable. You know, read Brene Brown, right? And just show and demonstrate, not just in what you say, but what you do, about how important it is to be self-aware and self-focused and self-driven, as you talk about.
And I would love to get your thoughts on that as well.
I'll stick with mentorship and what we can do as individuals. One of the things that I've had mentorship, sponsorship, and coaching later in my career. I did not have it early in my career. I have a LinkedIn group that now has over 200 people in it, and it's mentoring Black female HR professionals. And I started it to provide for others what I did not have, and to allow a safe space to have conversations and to share information. There is a need. So if each of us found that need, it could be in your community, your neighbor, your high school, your the college you went to, your organization. Start somewhere. When you share information, people get ideas, people start to do that. I feel that we have the power, the ability to change the fact that mentorship is dying, and we have the power to revive it, take it off life support.
It is on life support in a lot of ways. Yeah, I think one of the things that we've seen in our research is mentorship doesn't have to happen inside the organization. It can happen outside. We teach this all the time. And be part a group of 9 other individuals. We call it a circle of 10. If you can get into depth with 9 other people, just us, right? If we can get beyond our organization and help others outside of our organization, build a circle of depth and meeting and participation in their career and your career, that's where some real magic happens.
So John, the career path compression, we mentioned this earlier in the episode. You've described it isn't something a single manager can fix, but they can change how they develop the people on their team right now. For people who are thinking, I can't promise my people a promotion that may not exist anymore, because like you said, job evaporation is occurring. What can they offer instead, and how do they have that conversation authentically, honestly?
Yeah. You know, I think space, giving people space to develop themselves. I think sometimes organizations like, what can I do as a manager to own your development and to sort of facilitate your development? And I think one of the best things you can do is like, listen, that's actually, I'm gonna give you room. I'm gonna give you room to do that. I'm gonna give you resources and time, but I'm gonna give you space. Because what I decide to be good development for you and what you decide to be good development for yourself might be two different things. And that's okay. I think giving people space and latitude for their own self-development is one of the best things we can do. And I don't think we do that very well.
To tag onto that, I always say the trainee or the mentee or the protege has to bring at least 51%, right? Because the managers can't be chasing you down to teach you that skill. You got to have the drive to do that. I can't pull you up the mountain. I'll hold the rope, but I can't pull you up the mountain.
And you said that, you know, lead by example, right? Like just leadership is lead by example. Live that way as well. I think we've gotten ourselves in a place where we think like, who's going to help me? Who's going to do it for me? Do it for yourself, and just give them space for that. There's plenty of great books to read, you know. So I think giving people space is really important. I think we've gotten to a place where we've decided that work is more of a you know it's 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and it's nonstop. Who has 6 hours of meetings a day? Just like everybody, right? Where's the time to think? And then 2 hours for email. Where's the time to think? Where's the time to develop in that? There isn't any. I was talking to somebody the other day. It's like, I do all my email on Sundays. I'm like, well, what about your family? What about your kids? What about going to the gym? That's not a good model. So I think we need to give people space. People are amazing. Give them room.
I want to pull on a thread about giving space, and I'd love to encourage everyone to think about stay interviews. Many times we get information from exit interviews as someone is out the door, they're already gone. Many times they won't complete it until they've literally clocked out on their last day, and you're getting valuable information too late. I have found throughout my career, when I've invested time in stay interviews, I find out what people are truly passionate about. And you can use that to develop them. You're letting them know the value that they bring to the organization. You're letting them know that you want to invest in them, but you want to know how to do that. That's a very powerful way to get information on what truly drives people and where should they be in the organization.
So for leaders who want to apply that well-being architect that you mentioned earlier in our episode, but they're working inside organizations that are still focused on, you know, the output, the metrics, the efficiency. How do you build a business case for psychological safety that speaks the language of the C-suite?
It's important that leaders understand that you can't afford not to invest in employee well-being. You need your employees to be well so that you have a healthy organization. And having that conversation, it's important to have that conversation with data. It's important to know what turnover costs within the organization. Leaders, CEOs, CFOs, the executives within the organization, they want to understand numbers. They want to understand what's the cost to the bottom line. So as HR leaders, we should ensure that we know what turnover costs the organization. So if we lose a top talent, how long will it take us to replace that individual? What will it cost us to recruit them? And what will it cost the organization if you go 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days without that individual in the organization? Speaking to the executive and the C-suite and the board with data in mind and having those dollar conversations, get them to listen more keenly as it relates to investing in employee well-being, investing in employees being whole so that the organization can be whole.
Because well-being is a skill.
It is.
So I'll wrap up with this last question, and we'll go back down the line because I want to make it even. So what is one thing each of you wants people in our audience to do this week to keep building their careers, keep building their skills for themselves and for their teams?
Courage. Courage. Going back to the concept of vulnerability. Be brave. Understand your opportunities. Be brave to ask people for feedback. Be brave to listen to that feedback. be brave to do something about it. And then realizing that no person is an island and that we all got to where we are today because of the input, the investment of somebody else, and give that back.
I'd say find your inner nerd. And what I mean by that is there's an exercise we do. In fact, I'll give you an exercise. Draw a box and draw a little box on the inside of it and write the stuff you love, what you're fascinated with, what you love, what you're passionate about, whatever that is in the middle. Write the other stuff you have to do, meetings, all this other stuff, versioning on the outside. That's critical because we're talking about AI. AI wants the outside of the box. It wants all the tasks, right? You have to get familiar with your inner nerd. That's where your greatest value is. And in fractional, that's where you get paid really, really well for that high value stuff. Spend time on your inner nerd.
I would say do something practical. Think of who you would like to be your mentor. Even if you already have mentors, is there someone who you would love if they're your mentor? And especially if it makes you a little bit uncomfortable to think about asking them to be your mentor, reach out. What I've found through mentorship is that I learn as much as from my mentees as they learn from me. It's very fulfilling. It's very rewarding. I would certainly encourage you to think about mentorship as a two-way street and make it practical. Reach out to a couple of people this week.
All right, John, Yogi, Prudence, thank you so much for this amazing conversation. Thank you for bringing Star Trek into the conversation as well. This was just so much fun to talk about, but also so enlightening. So thank you so much for bringing your insights today. It's super helpful.
Absolute
Thanks for
pleasure.
inviting us.
Thank you.
It's been awesome.
Great conversation.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for this week. We'll catch you next time. If you enjoyed our conversation today, be sure to subscribe wherever you enjoy your podcast so you never miss a new episode. Also, did you know All Things Work is more than a podcast? That's right, we're also a weekly newsletter that includes in-depth articles and the latest research from SHRM to keep you in the know. Just head to shrm.org/allthingswork to sign up. Plus, follow SHRM on social media to view the latest clips and join the conversation on game-changing topics that are redefining the world of work.
Working around complexity is the norm, but what if it didn't have to be? Imagine never second-guessing payroll. Real-time expense data that puts you in control. And automated workflows that take repetitive tasks off your plate. That what if is now a reality. One unified platform for HR, finance, and IT.
SHRM.